because they're not muted on this end. Okay, so, and I'm in my office if you guys.
All right.
I'm sorry.
I know. See, one grant deadline, I put a grant in yesterday at 5, got a grant deadline tomorrow, got another grant deadline Monday. Just kind of go ahead to do another grant. I need some email and then I'm gonna not have to get that grant. Then hopefully.
Yeah.
Needed to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do look at
I wouldn't normally be a part of Mayor's job, right?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do?
Thank you.
Work down. You want to move the town forward? Oh, work down. Maybe just us land though.
I then.
I already started.
Good. See you.
So I guess,
Yeah, I'd like to see the two of you.
you might just be doing this, I don't know.
Thomas did, he was part of the.
Steve did.
Yes.
Did Steve push that?
No, Thomas.
Right.
I'm just thinking, what's that? Is that normal?
Oh, you probably need to shut off all the audio on your computer yourself, yeah,
Not to mute,
because it will, the speakers in the room will pick it up.
just mute you.
Yeah, just mute your whole computer.
Hello.
Hey, Marla.
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you better now. Thank you for doing that.
I wonder, since we're not gonna have that many, maybe we should slide this thing so we can see. Sure. Not see each other's screen.
Hi, Mara, we love our questions.
I mean.
Hello.
On the other side of here, you want to sit here? We can sign why do not care.
Yeah.
Let's get through this.
I think we get we need that, you know, it's. Great.
Yeah. Going across the east ones. Yes.
Do you want to switch places? What more?
Yeah, we could do a.
We can help it here, because I might need to keep an eye on this. If anyone else maybe.
Well, they can pop up here.
Oh, right.
See, okay, and you can, turn your table around too, so you're more of a U shape, so maybe. Because you're gonna be on the computer, so.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if they should be able to see me on there.
You'll be seen on your computer.
Okay. I have tech anxiety. I'm like always.
You're so good at it.
That's why she has.
High expectations.
It's like us. Who cares? Whatever. Paper.
Video.
Prescription. Oh,
This was even this one. Still got a few.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me, for accommodating the Zoom thing.
Yeah, of course. We're Marissa and Scott, Molly, Lynn, and Mary so far. So
Hello.
I'm sitting here.
Hello. Hi.
Should be.
We need one of these for the office. For our Zooms.
Start.
So, all right, I'm glad we have a friendly crowd.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna open the work session. I don't think there's a point in doing a roll call.
I just lit.
John Balls, you could take this up. I'll be there. The last time I was this is us. That was a joint meeting with the board. Well, the board, 2 members just got out of the hospital, 3 members are left town. And so me and Thomas are the only board members that are actually in town.
Okay.
Well, it's not boring.
There you go. Well, and I'm gonna do some facilitation and timekeeping.
Okay.
So, let's go ahead and start. I'll turn it over to Marissa.
Okay, thanks. Well, we wanted to just introduce ourselves, for those who don't know already. I'm Marissa Mulmarks. I've been here in Paonia for 7 years. For the last 10 years, I've been working with communities around the country on building local resilience in many ways. Things like local economy has been my focus, but also energy, transportation, education, agriculture, pretty much all aspects of what makes a community resilient. And I also have a master's in public administration, and I was just really excited to be part of this effort to, bring our community into the future. And I know a lot of positive things are happening with the town right now, so I'm happy to be part of that change. And one of our team members, Kella Rose Ostrander, is in here tonight. She's in Portugal on another work project. Oh, I should say my focus areas on the master plan will be economic development, and then working with Scott on the tourism and recreation element, supporting the other elements, participating in the community engagement work, and then serving as project manager until August, when I'm expecting a baby, at which point Scott and Kella Rose will take over as project manager. And then Kella Rose has a lot of experience working with services and utilities, as well as climate adaptation. She lives here in Paonia, has for the last couple of years. Her family lives here as well, but she's worked for the city of San Francisco and Aspen on climate adaptation work. So she'll be bringing that background. And then I'll let Scott and Molly and Laura introduce themselves and share a little bit about what your focus on the master plan will be. Oh, one more thing, Kella Rose is really excited about doing a phased release of the draft report to the public to make sure that they really get to see it in kind of bite-sized pieces that allow for real, digestion and interaction with the plan rather than bringing it all out at once. So we have a plan for that, which we'll go over in the presentation.
I'm Scott Brown, and I'm going on just 2 years in town. And one of the reasons I thought this would be fun would be to get to know the community better. And I know Marissa and I have worked together through Transition US, her work there. I was a participant in some of their workshops and one of their working groups. And so Marissa knows I have a lot of experience in facilitation, interpersonal realm, peacemaking, restorative justice. So I'm here primarily to help facilitate and put together the public engagement sessions. And also I have the culture and character section of the report, as well as, helping with tourism creation. So, glad to be a part of the team.
Thanks. I'm Molly Wheelock, and I own a residential design practice here in town. I've been here for 5 years, and I've been working in the architectural design field and planning field for 18 years. Mara is a contractor with us. She's also a designer and with planning experience. I'll let her introduce herself a little bit more, but we're kind of focused on the overall presentation of the actual master plan. So as everyone writes their sections, we are gathering them and creating the actual document. and the, aesthetic of that, the graphic design around that. We are also overseeing the growth framework section, so kind of bringing our background in development and housing. I have a background in working in a lot of smaller communities in southern Utah and northern Arizona, as well as here in Colorado. And Colorado native, grew up in the Rockies, and I think also just kind of trying to be a part of a growth that also preserves our small town character. Something I care a lot about, and we'll also be participating in some of the facilitation and kind of the graphics end of things, like I said, with any flyers or things that we put out. So, did I catch everything?
Yeah, I think so.
Mara, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Mara Montoyu. I am Romanian. I lived in the Delta County area for 5 years between 2013 2018, and I'm currently in Chile. I'm a residential designer, and I worked in the area. I participated in residential design. I did Silverleaf co-housing, and I'm currently working with Molly remotely. I'm contracting for Studio MW. And I think Molly covered pretty much our role in the master plan.
Right.
So I have a question. So my understanding of the master plan, there's a whole lot of just basic community planning that goes into this. I mean, residential planning and recreation planning. It's like, how is the community going to grow? And where's the community going to grow? And what? Is there somebody who's kind of heading that?
So that's a little bit our section.
Okay.
And I mean, we're all working together. We've divided it up so that it's just manageable by teams. But we're also basing this on, past programs, past research and reports. So we're drawing on, the expertise that's already part of our resource cache. And we're my background has been in conservation subdivisions. And so some projects similar to like Hawks Haven. But we've also I've worked in northern Arizona with the Kaibab Paiute and working on a pretty simple but a master plan for their town and their reservation, and looking at how they wanted to grow. And so we've looked at infrastructure, we've looked at obviously many of us have seen how reservation housing gets laid out. It's not very holistic or community oriented. So we worked to create some additional developments that would feel more centered and community based and have better relationship to each other. And then the Pipe Springs has these very isolated pocket communities. And so we worked on tying those all together with paths and greenways and things like that. Yeah, I think the main thing that we're doing is we're collecting that evidence that is already there and kind of building on that.
One of the questions we have to talk to you about later is like, how do we want to work with the planning commission, or how does the planning commission want to work with us on all of that? We're looking at existing zoning and the intergovernmental growth agreement, the water system, all of that to figure out.
I want to come to our next meeting because we're going to be discussing the intergovernmental agreement. at our next planning commission meeting.
On Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right, shall we continue?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, to make sure we At least one of us is there on Wednesday. What time is that again?
We usually meet at 4. Except, yeah, from the 5th. Yeah. I just talked to somebody. Wednesday. Yeah, the first Wednesday. Yeah. She said the 3 o'clock and 4. Just. Yeah, so. Yeah. So I said.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and go through a little presentation here.
Okay, cool.
That outlines our process. If I can find it. Oh, there it is, okay. And you're welcome to ask clarifying questions, and we're gonna have a few opportunities for discussion throughout the presentation.
That building looks so much nicer with that color, not black.
That's a really pretty picture. The
Yeah.
colors in the picture are great.
Yeah. Southwest.
That's gonna keep me on time.
Okay.
All right. So we wanted to get some shared understanding of the role and goals of the master plan. Starting with what DOLA lays out, that obviously we know municipalities and counties are authorized to prepare comprehensive plans as a long-range guiding document for a community to achieve its vision and goals. They provide policy frameworks for regulatory tools like zoning, subdivision regulations, annexations, and other policies, and promote the community's vision, goals, objectives, and policies, establish a process for orderly growth and development, address current and long-term needs, and balance the natural and built environment. So that's DOLA is supporting this project in part. And DOLA relies on the American Planning Association for their kind of best practices or standards for comprehensive plans. And it seems that a lot of progress has happened in the planning arena in the last decade or decade and a half. And there's a shift kind of from just looking at physical development and land use to also integrating social and environmental concerns. And it's really more of a dynamic and democratic process now than it was originally. And I just really like this description of thinking about how to sustain our place, which means we need to meet the needs of current and future generations without compromising, you know, the ecosystems they depend on. So balancing the social, economic, environmental resources. And that's right from the best practices for comprehensive planning. So we reread the RFP and pulled out what we thought were some of the key values that you all were embracing in this project. And one is accessibility. You want a short, clear document, 30 to 40 pages that is accessible and easily understood by the public. And you want this plan to be responsive to the unique qualities of Paonia. That was mentioned a couple times. We really want it tailored, obviously, to our region and local culture. And then a collaborative process where we're working, what you said in the RFP was hand in glove with the Planning Commission. So that's one thing we want to talk to you about is what is that going to look like. So given all of that, we're seeing our mandate as creating a collaborative process that emphasizes Paonia's unique qualities, values, and needs, balancing vision, values, and needs as best we can, prioritizing local experience and input, researching what's already been done, gathering fresh perspectives, building in the latest thinking in the professional planning arena, building trust with the community and with the town as we go, and then delivering implementable guidance to the town and planning commission. And so with all of that background information, we wanted to propose a couple goals for this process, and we're going to have a little discussion to see how these land with you, because we want this to feel, we want to know if this is what success will feel like to you. So our first goal is to develop a shared vision and clear accessible action plan to guide our community toward a thriving and resilient future. That's the actual plan. And then the second goal is to utilize the participatory community engagement process that builds trust in local government and builds momentum toward addressing our community needs and goals. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott to lead a little discussion for us.
Yeah, comments.
Well, it looks good to me. I mean, I like how inclusive it is and it's really directed. You know, your focus is directed towards this community versus, I think, some of the outside work that was done, it's pretty general.
Mhm.
So I like that. And I like how inclusive you're going to be with the community. I think that's really important. Wondering if there's a place maybe on the town website or something, but as things come in and there's kind of things are coalescing, to have a separate space or maybe a link to your website or something where people can follow it.
Yeah, we would like that as well. I spoke to Leslie and Samira about it and they asked if we could create our own page that the town could link to. So I'm thinking just like a simple Google Doc that is that the public can't edit, they can view, but it's easy for us to edit and keep up to date with the events and the resources that we're using and opportunities to participate.
And maybe some of the plans or ideas that have, you know, come together so people can.
Yeah, when we have something that's ready to be shared
Yeah.
publicly, like the elements of the draft plan, we can do that as well. Cool, yeah.
Ongoing public comment. Yeah.
Yeah, and just ongoing information, so when people come to the comment meetings, they can see what's already, you know, kind of what's up there and what they agree with or don't.
Yeah, I like it as well. I like the shared vision and that's a clear and accessible action plan. Definitely an action plan with, you know, clear steps in. And then set forward over a timeline
Mhm.
as well. I like that. And yeah, definitely, let's get as many community members as we possibly can as part of this action plan. And, you know, again, my idea of community is not bounded by the town limits.
Okay,
My
that's one of our
sense-
questions here.
My sense of community is the people who use this town
Mhm.
as their community, the ones that come off the mesas and they shop here.
Mhm.
And then they go back, they come to meetings and they come to, their friends live in town.
Mhm.
People in town have their friends outside. To me, that is community. Community is this part of the North Fork Valley. It's not just everybody. And I think if we do a master plan that only takes into account the works of the town, we are doing a disservice
Mhm.
to the whole.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that. Wanting to.
And it's all connected.
And everything happens here, it does impact everybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And if they all stop shopping in Paonia, our town will blow up and die away.
yeah. Yeah. All right. So review of the deliverables. I know Mary's seen these a few times, but kickoff meeting we're having tonight. We have two public community engagement sessions scheduled already. One is Thursday, April 27th, weeknight, 5:30 to 7, and then the other is Saturday, June 10th, 10 to 12 a.m. Yeah, because we know there was a good turnout at that Saturday strategy session that you all did last summer. And then 5 meetings or group interviews with town staff, boards and committees. The town staff that would be focused on getting information about the water system and services rather than like advising on policy. But then the trustees, planning commission, potentially tree board or parks committee. We have budgeted for 5 meetings or group interviews, and we want to talk to you about what you recommend for those. And we have time for that towards the end. Just a kind of a brief overview of the deliverables. As well as 3 individual interviews with key stakeholders. Mostly we had in mind if folks like tonight aren't able to be here because they're sick or whatever, we want to make space to speak with them. We have a dedicated email address set up to receive public comments. I may also set up just an easy, simple survey using the town survey monkey, so we can get more specific comments. And then we'll have flyers and social media posts to let folks know about the process and how they can participate when the events are, et cetera. Like I mentioned before, a phased public release of the key draft report sections with public events for each. There will be 3 public events for the draft report, and then the final 30 to 40 page master plan is what was requested in the RFP. Any clarifying questions on that?
You have kind of a timeline that you're
Yeah,
thinking to be at the 30 to 40 page.
we definitely have a timeline. Yes. We'll get to that in just a minute. And then the format, so the bullets on the left are straight from the RFP. We're asked to have a brief introductory chapter, community vision and values, goals and policies, a growth framework, an action plan, and then maps, graphics, and a bibliography. And then we are thinking of 6 main kind of elements or topics for the goals, policies, and action plan. And these are also somewhat open to feedback and evolution, but culture and character, recreation and tourism, which is required by the state of Colorado, economic development, water and infrastructure, growth framework, again, that was requested in the RFP, and then risks, resilience, and emergency preparedness.
How does housing fit in all?
Yeah, so
I noticed that.
Yeah, so it'll be in the growth framework to a degree, but all the work that's being done under the housing action plan. I spoke with Shay Coburn yesterday, just an initial making sure we were working together in a good way, not planning our events on the same day or anything like that. And her suggestion was to just say in the master plan, see the affordable housing action plan. And then refer folks to that document for everything related to the affordable housing work. And that's another question for you, is how do you want to frame that, and how do you want to see those documents interacting?
See, I have some concerns about referring to an outside document. I think it really does need to be integrated into the master plan as a whole, because you're reading along in the master plan, you have questions about housing. How many people are going to jump to the other document? So I think it needs to be in the master plan. I mean, you may do a very condensed version of it, the conclusions or whatever, but I really think it needs to be in the master plan as a whole. And how
Some of that reason we were talking about just doing the referral too, is we're not sure when that will be complete in relationship to our timeline.
Well, it should be done well before you guys finish with yours.
Okay, I don't know, but we'll show you our timelines. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm flexible. You can see how things move along and what makes sense.
And I think either way, we can coordinate with the housing, housing action plan with Shay. Even if she's not complete, I think we can write a comprehensive section that covers housing, which is our plan anyway, to be covering not just affordable housing.
Right, yeah, housing as a whole, yeah, because it addresses the whole thing. The other thing that was one of the concerns that was raised when we were discussing this with the housing applicants for it is we don't want to burn people out on meetings because they're going to stop coming. And so we were thinking, is there a way both groups can coordinate some of their meetings so that people can only come to one meeting instead of having attending 3 or 4 meetings instead of attending 8.
Yeah. Well, we only have we have the 2 community engagement sessions before the draft master plan comes out, and then potentially 3 of introducing the draft master plan. We could cut down on those if you'd rather see that.
I think we need to look at your schedule.
Okay.
Before we make any.
Okay, and then I talked to Shay about, she said they probably wouldn't be ready to contribute to the April 28th meeting that we're planning, but we could potentially coordinate on the June 10th meeting and maybe even do it together or something. Yeah, or at least have them have a segment of the meeting. Yeah.
I have a question about culture and character, and under that would there be like, a kind of vision? The vision of the character of the town past and then future, because I know when we moved here, the HOA, there are certain visions they had that they want to do, and I thought that was really great, like they wanted you to have a front porch so that you could, connect with people walking by. So it'd be kind of interesting to see, some of the visions that people really hold dear, and then what are some future visions?
Yeah, well, we have the section on community vision and values. And culture and character is in there because I know the town has already done a lot of work has happened in the community, like the whole Heart and Soul project and kind of establishing a shared culture and character for the town. And looking at the last draft master plan that was done, there was a lot in there about that. So it seemed important to have that as kind of like a foundation for the rest of the work. But I think, and I guess that's probably more foundational or like looking backwards, and then vision is more looking forwards. But I see both of those pieces being in there, and we can
shake hands.
Yeah, we can talk about exactly where they need to go. This is all a work in progress, so, and all open to feedback.
Yeah, as I've started to work on that section, there's a lot that feeds, like recreation feeds into it, and recreation, big time economic development feeds into it, because people realize that we need that. We need some growth, but we want it to be a certain way. So and there's a lot of values that fall out under that heading too, and a lot of visions, and they're already out there, and I've been gathering them. And yeah, I don't know how we'll end up distilling that, but it almost, I guess the main values, vision and values section could get broken down somewhat into the different topics. And then maybe there's one overarching vision or something. But yeah, it's an interesting process to distill.
I think that's something that resonates for our team, is that, the whole process is values driven, really. As we are rating each of these sections, and as we're working through even the community processes, that we're working on that shared vision. That's how I'm hearing what you're saying, like these kind of foundational pieces that everything else kind of builds on.
Yeah, and you'll hear that echo too when we talk about the community engagement shortly.
I think it's important because people are attached to the values they hold that are already in place or they moved into, and then there's resistance when new values come in. And so making sure that those coalesce.
Yeah. Well, tolerance is big under culture and character. And, learning to appreciate the diversity that we do have. Cultural diversity, economic diversity. It could be a 30-page report on that. It's hard to follow. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful work that we want to bring forward.
It's still down to 2 sentences. I just have one other question, since I'm not, I don't have background in this. So does this also include like how the commercial aspect of this town develops too, because it's getting a little top heavy right now. And which is great. I love it, but a lot of people don't. And so does this plan also take into consideration, like, what are some of the needs that are missing? This town from a commercial standpoint, Grand Avenue.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about that for the economic development section, but another question we have for you is like, what do you see as the biggest kind of questions you want to see answered or needs you want to see addressed with this process and project? And if that's one of them, I'd love to talk to you more about what your thinking is, what the planning commission's thinking is.
And when you say top heavy, what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, once Hayes left, so we don't have a lot of services. We have a lot of entertainment and cultural, so we have a lot of arts, music, bars. Well, you know, and we have nice restaurants, but they're not open all the time. I just bumped into two gentlemen that are bringing a group here, I believe from Boulder in the summer, and wanted to know what restaurants would be open and when, and so in having something like that, even maybe on the town website, I know Ildy's husband puts that out on Facebook, what restaurants are open when, because it's a big thing when people come here and Airbnb people and stuff. So I'm just thinking like, the master plan, I feel like should really dovetail well with how commercial development is, whether it's the planning commission and the trustees or whatever, advise, like in the master plan, people are like, we'd like to see something more like this versus this.
Yeah.
I think that also fits in a little bit with the growth framework. Thinking about how this town grows, and if certain, I've heard the joke that, the south end of town is the industrial district, and then there's the arts district, and then there's the restaurant district, the financial district, all along Grand, right? I'm in the financial district. Then the next door is, but the thought of how, how certain areas do start to support commercial, obviously we don't want that everywhere, but thinking about ways that we can start to create different affordable commercial spaces where we might draw, different services in that might not fit on Grand, and how we might want to grow the town, kind of different zoning, excuse me, but we're not doing zoning, but kind of just how we want to see those spaces develop.
You mean in the growth zones?
Yeah. Yeah, the urban growth areas.
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about is it seems like a lot of these, the issues you're raising, Lynn, there's an important role for Chamber of Commerce or Community Development Corporation with what you just shared about how do we create spaces that attract the kind of businesses that we want to see in those spaces, and also realizing this is a project for the town of Paonia and we're working with the community, but how do we interact with those? How do we cultivate those non-governmental groups that serve some of these important functions, because the town can't do it all, obviously.
Or even feed them, because we don't have one of this.
Yeah. So I am thinking about that and how to bring that through in the action. Okay, so here's our process with our timeline. We are currently reviewing and synthesizing background materials. We will begin promoting the community engagement sessions next week. Just wanted to inform you all about them before we go public. And we'll be doing that through flyers, social media, outreach to churches, nonprofits, other community institutions. Our first community engagement session is Thursday, April 27th in the evening, right here in this room. Probably following that, but some might be before then, these stakeholder interviews that we want to speak to you about who we should be interviewing or focusing on. And I think that will also become more clear as we just proceed in this process. As the process evolves, it will become clear what big questions we have and who we should be speaking to. Our second community engagement session is Saturday, June 10th in the morning, 10 a.m. to noon. And we are planning to have a draft master plan to the town by the end of July. And then our revision process is going to start in August. So we're asking the town to give us your substantive comments on the draft master plan. So it's your chance to give us big feedback by August 18th. So that's 2.5 weeks. We scheduled this all because we wanted to wrap it up by the end of the year. And I guess you can give us feedback if like 2.5 weeks isn't enough time and we need to figure out how to rework the schedule a little bit, or maybe reduce the number of public sessions we're doing for the draft master plan to just make it a little more spacious. But we have 3 public review sessions for the draft master plan tentatively scheduled for September 25th, October 2nd, and October 9th. We'd be presenting like a third of the master plan during each section. And then we would take the rest of October to incorporate public comment on the draft, and then submit our second draft to the town by October 30th. And then we'd be asking for the town to provide minor edits, but not substantive, not like we need to rework the whole report, but minor edits by November 14th. And then get the final master plan to you by December 18th. And when we were communicating with Leslie about the contract and the timeline, we let her know, like Studio MW and also Keller Rose, they have other projects wrapping up around that time. So if for some reason the process went long into late December, we would ask to then have until the end of January to finish it, because a lot of projects are going to be wrapping up for holidays. So that your lawyer suggested we have the end date for the contract be February 29th to make sure there was just ample time to wrap things up.
I was just looking at the board meeting schedule. Well, August 18th. Trying to figure if it would be better. That's
One of the questions we had is, do you want the trustees and the planning commission to be involved in the substantive revisions, or is that more a planning commission?
I think the first round of substantive things should be to the planning commission, but then it needs to go to the board also.
Okay,
So I think the first round, take it to the planning commission, have them work on it, since there are a few of them until you're going to get plus stuff. And then so it's going to take you how long to incorporate? So your plan then is to take what you get from the board, incorporate it into the document and bring that document to the public, correct?
yeah, we figured y'all would want to see it before we revealed it to the public.
So we've got a month and a half, more or less, September 25th. Maybe if you could possibly take the comments from the planning commission and then bring it to the board, say on the 12th of September, present it to the board on the 12th of September with a week turnaround, if that would give you enough time to put the board's comments in it prior to the public.
Okay,
So the board would have a shot at taking a look at it too before it goes to the public.
okay.
12th of September.
Yeah.
That only gives really a week to incorporate that first section.
That gives you,
Yeah, I think we might need to
yeah.
think about it.
Yeah, think about it. Think about it and see if that's doable
Okay.
for you.
I guess it depends on how many revisions.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we try to make things spacious, but we're also hoping to have a really solid first draft that doesn't need a ton of revision, but we're also planning to be able to do a lot of revision if needed.
Yeah, so it can.
And so the question then is too, because I know there's going to be a board member who's going to question your periods and your comments. Is that the kind of feedback you want?
I would say that's the minor, that's like a grammatical edit.
Okay, so then, yeah,
Yes,
the direction of the board could be, we want substantive.
Yeah.
Feedback, we want feedback on the general issues, the way those general issues are presented.
I
Yeah,
mean, if somebody caught a grammar thing, but yeah, you don't need. And we've worked with someone in the past and we can look into that ourselves, you know, we're all gonna read through it. And then we'll have that. Yeah, we actually. Have someone who does that professionally.
Okay.
for- Can review that for us.
Okay.
When you do the public review, are you gonna have kind of some corralling guidelines so people don't out in
Yeah.
left field and drag you off into another zone where, you know, like this, so that it's like, well, that's, I don't know how you tell somebody that's not appropriate. But
That's Scott's job.
But it just seems like, you know, anytime you get a big group, it's like when I went to the BLM one, it was very clear, you know, what was happening and what you could comment on, and you couldn't say, well, I want a dog park up here, you know, it's like.
Well, that's why we got public engagement number one.
Mhm. And then
Number
you-
two, hopefully, that's the ideal. Yeah.
but we haven't like figured that out exactly how we're gonna do that, but yeah, my intention for all the public comment is. I mean, we have this open email address that people can just submit comments to, but I'd like to have a structured, clear process so that we are receiving things that are constructive.
And maybe even like to let people know ahead of time that, you know, you are gonna be doing this. And that they come to the first meeting, they get to throw out every idea they want, and then it gets, you know, consolidated, and so that, you know, that makes people say, well, if I want to come.
I think that's the benefit of the phased release that Calrose is interested in, and I think y'all are. And that allows us to kind of have these, the sessions are focused. So, you know, if we're just talking about the community and culture and economic development, we're kind of focusing our comments on those portions of whatever's been released. So hopefully that'll help kind of keep things, and if people do start to wander from that and say, well, we'll address that in another session.
And of course, there will be the people who have never seen the turn of the session.
I know, and then.
Yeah.
This, yeah, instead of me, that is.
Yeah, but yeah, and just, you know, I think in those situations, not pushing off their comment, but directing them to the email, just so that we can have a productive discussion around this topic. But we value your comment.
And maybe just a quick, like, say the first section, you did culture and whatever, and then the next one you're doing house, to just do a quick recap what happened in the first one, so people don't feel like they're first that they can come and hear for venue.
Yeah, our intention with all the public engagement is to first let people know what the existing kind of baseline or context is. So for this first community engagement session, share a little summary of the research that we've done in each area and the other like contributing documents, and just what the current thinking is so that people aren't starting from scratch and it's not just a free for all. And yes, like creative ideas are welcome, but giving people as much context as possible to make things constructive. I hope.
Should we talk more about that now?
Is that where we are? Yeah, over to you.
Okay, yeah, so our meeting is very informed by the meeting that Sally Kane facilitated for the town, because that seemed to work really well. So we're envisioning the poster sheets, the on the wall, sticky notes and dots for voting, and really starting with some proposed values and vision statements that draw from what's already out there. And then just get a sense of the room, the groups that gather around each topic. So it's all kind of topic centric, spread people out, calling on some volunteers to step forward to help facilitate groups. So people can look at the vision and the values and take a sticky note and add, express concerns, vote for what they like, so that we can just get a sense. And we're going to start with pizza. That's important to mention.
Good choice.
Is it?
Have some salad.
And Marissa's brought in this idea of a word cloud to get what's the question? What do you most love about this place or this community? One word. And so everybody gets their word, and you can project it on the wall with where they're all mixed together. You've seen that,
Oh, yeah.
word cloud stuff. So that seems like a good icebreaker kind of thing. Everybody gets some input right at the front. And so the first, Marissa will do a short PowerPoint. That'll kind of open. We'll introduce the team, short PowerPoint, maybe a few little time for some Q&A, and then go into that first exercise. It's focused on vision and values for each of the topic areas. Moving pretty fast, right? Like sticky note, vote, you can move around the room. And then the second exercise is a little more brainstorming and a little more focused on goals and policies, like to start thinking about specifics as soon as we can. So again, organized around the topics, and we're envisioning 2 groups per topic. So to keep them relatively small if we can get the facilitator. So 2 groups to talk about character and culture, 2 groups for growth framework, and to, again, with sticky notes and dots to really start putting your specific, building on the values and the vision. What are the policies? Because that's our language. What are the goals? And what are the policies? What are the specifics? So just basically a brainstorm, which can be facilitated really quickly. Like, give me one idea, give me one idea, give me one idea. And you just keep going around. And then we're going to hire a roving note taker to help us capture, the messages, and hope we'll have some tape so we can fasten the sticky notes to the sheets and, take a picture and maybe take them home and capture those results. And then the last part is just summarizing, having each of the group facilitators summarize key points, key takeaways, and then trying to summarize the whole, this would be this job to kind of bring it all home and just facilitate the whole thing. And I don't think we've built in more Q&A there because we probably just won't have time, but then explain all the other ways people can put in public comment. The email and the Google Doc. That's the basic idea as far.
For the first session.
For the first session.
And then we're gonna see how it goes, see what needs to be tweaked, and if we end up collaborating with the housing folks, we might need a different format for June 10th, but yeah.
I just had a little thought, and I don't know if Bruce Woodside has, I know he's an animator, but have you ever seen the after schools? You know, it's like an animator comes and he talks about some subject, history or whatever, and he's, as they're discussing it, he's drawing on his pictures and it's really quite amazing.
On the computer.
And that would be, well, it's actually doing it on a whiteboard. And the after
Okay.
school, it's SKOO. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It would be kind of interesting at the end to have Bruce, as you're wrapping it up, he's doing this animation.
Recording.
It's just some way to engage people at a different emotional and creative level than the sticky note and.
Kind of like the idea of incorporating like this word cloud and things like that even into the master plan. Like some images that just record the process that the community went through and like,
Yes.
Yeah,
you know, in 5-10 years, someone can be, when they're reviewing the master plan, it gives that heart and soul. It's really
Yeah, and I love graphic recording and I can ask Bruce if he'd be up for that. I know with Ridgeway, they did like a poem where they like took all the input that they got from people and made it into this very long poem that they put in the master plan. I think they had graphic recording at their events too. But I think they also had like a much bigger budget for their projects. But maybe Bruce would do it. He did a video for Transition US once.
He might.
Good idea.
Good thought to have a photographer.
great.
Yeah.
I sent you the link to the after school,
After school,
Yeah.
SKOL.
SKOOL.
OOL.
And I mean, you learn so much in it, even as an adult. But, you know, it's just the way in which there's something about learning that isn't spoken. It's spoken and then visual, and it just goes in here. For some people learn way better. Me too, I'm a visual.
Well, if there's no other questions on any of that, we're right on time. for-
Okay, well, actually, it seems, I think Dave Knudsen and I will be meeting with the housing group hopefully next week sometime. And so we can talk about, and one of the things they want to talk about is scheduling. And so if they have something draft by about the same time that you have your draft, then maybe we can do an integration thing relatively easily, because we had originally planned for them to have their finished project by they're done by the middle of July or the end of July.
I told Shay I would send this to her once I ran it by you all, and I can do that, and I'll send it to all of you as
Okay.
well. When I say all of you, I mean it's not here. So you can have our timeline handy. Great. Okay, so then we wanted to talk to you about the background materials we're utilizing, kind of what we've already been given and what we think we should be using in addition, and then some gaps that we're seeing. So this is what I received from Corinne back in November. There's a second slide as well. This was before we had a contract or were accepted. Our proposal was accepted. I just submitted a Cora request because I wanted to get a sense of the volume of material we were going to be working with. So this is what I got from Corinne. We have all these past draft master plans and the 96 plan, the revitalizing Main Street report, SDO profile, which we're going to get updated, more current information, and then some basic master plan documents, understanding rural migration, some community engagement stuff, the North Fork Vision 2020, some sample community engagement projects from other communities or plans from other communities. Culture and character, that's the heart and soul stuff. And then tourism and recreation, Delta County tourism marketing plan, creative district, space to create. signage and wayfinding. Some of these were general documents like creating parks and public spaces, Colorado bike law, a bunch of economic development stuff, Delta County economic assessment, market assessment, development strategy. Some stuff is pretty dated, like the 2020 and stuff in 2011, Delta County economic development goals and Region 10 comprehensive economic development strategy, resources on supporting entrepreneurs and small business and how local government can do that. Yeah, you can see all of those. Things related to the growth framework, land use planning in Colorado, local government land use authority in Colorado, sustainable design and green building toolkit, 2017 zoning map, Highway 133 corridor plan, smart growth guidelines for sustainable development. We got very little on water and infrastructure. Well, the EPA water quality scorecard is pretty, it's like a 50-page document, but I know Keller's has a lot of documents you
Right,
received
in
from you.
Jeremiah, actually.
Yeah,
The NOAA stuff,
yeah.
or the JDS hydro stuff.
And Leslie suggested Keller Rose, who's taking the lead on that section, just go to one of the town staff meetings that are focused on the water system.
Oh, the CIP, yeah.
Tuesday afternoon meetings, I guess.
Yeah.
And get everything she needs from them. And then not much on the emergency preparedness either. There was a community preparedness survey from Y2K. And then
Oh my God.
I bet that's a fun meeting.
actually the survey results either. It was just the form that they used. The survey results really would have been interesting. And then a community health needs assessment. So,
I'm surprised that Region 10 doesn't have this.
okay, well, we can notice that I have been getting into the Region 10 resources.
And Jeremiah's been collecting quite a bit on fire preparedness for water infrastructure and then mitigation if there is a fire with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and doesn't Delta County have a emergency preparedness plan? And there was a whole big plan that was done after the 2019 water debacle that was done.
The county, at the county level.
It was done for Paonia, so
Okay.
there's that whole big document for that too.
Well, so these are just the documents I got from Corinne, and then I have another slide here of resources that I've come across that I thought we should probably be using and wanted to check with you about. I was curious about there's like a Town of Paonia 2020 strategic plan that I found in one of your meeting packets. And it references a number of other plans, which I'm going to show you in the next slide.
Okay.
The look on your face, Mary, makes me think maybe it's not something we should be using, but do you know what it's, okay.
Not really.
There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
I've been looking at this.
Good stuff in there too. It looked like something that the trustees did together at like a
Oh,
retreat.
yeah, that could, yeah.
Okay,
All
so I
right.
guess my question is there any reason not to be using these resources?
Oh, no.
And then we've got the source water protection plan in 2010. I think what you're speaking about, Mary, the 2018 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan for Delta County. So we have those.
I would also just add the wildlands urban interface.
Yes. That's a question, right?
Well,
Do we have something like that or?
no,
Okay.
it's a document that's this.
Oh,
That
okay.
is, that's one that Mara
Mhm.
and I brought up. That is, Mara, you can probably speak to that a little bit more, but the it's a state of Colorado document that we deal with in a lot of construction that we work on. But it's not just about building, it's also how you interface with wildlands. And so looking at how when we're looking at growth, you know, how we want to think about growth, how we want to think about fencing in those areas, how we want to think about, you know, and how much we want to adopt that. It's a choice, but it's, I think, a really valuable document to look at for. It kind of fits into that risk management, emergency preparedness as well.
wildlife interface. I mean, we are a wildlife.
Yeah.
So we need to be looking at continuous.
Yeah.
Live in town and they go.
No comments, Suzanne.
I don't.
But that really deals mostly with wildfire, but as well.
Well, it ties into water and connectivity as well. I think that's one of the, the important things about it. It has, the basic fire truck accessibility and water supply conformity, and it's a pretty overarching document, I think, as far as development goes, looking at a risk strategy, I guess.
Yeah. Mara, do you have the full name of that?
I think it's called the Wildland Urban Interface Code 2018. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Sorry, we're busting into your plans.
No, we're fine. Doing good.
You can get me.
Over here.
No, it's good to get clear on that, because I thought you had said that was one that they had in Gunnison County but didn't have here, and we needed something like that, so it's good to know.
It's a state document that then you can choose to adopt.
Okay.
Basically.
Have you seen the documents on the calendar?
Suzanne, we are not taking public comment, Suzanne, it's absolutely, it's open, you can bring up this to them after the meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I mean, there's like this.
Suzanne.
So I thought it was, to talk during the.
So the one document I really wanted to ask you about is the Pan Motion Parks, Recreation and Trails Master Plan, which also wasn't originally given to me by Corinne. And Samir just double checked and it was adopted by resolution. Okay, I think there were misconceptions about the status of that document. And my question is, do we want to reference this as one of the key elements of the master plan?
I mean, it has been adopted. Yeah, there are problems with it and there are pieces that the council doesn't like. But yeah, it has been adopted. And we have been moving forward on pieces of it. So yes.
Okay.
please reference.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then some additional information we need that I haven't found myself yet, and I don't know if all of these things exist. But the growth management agreement.
That is the IGA that we will be discussing on Wednesday.
Okay, so that's where we should learn more about that.
And I can actually give you the old one and the draft one. I
Okay,
can send that.
great, thank you. I knew something was happening with it and I don't know what the
Yeah.
status was and if we could see it. And then annexation policy or criteria, if there's anything besides. Okay. Look at the code. Okay. Capital improvements plan. Jeremiah said there is one for water.
Yes.
But not for.
Not for any, well, it's written into the budget, but it's not except as line items in the budget, but there's not like a written document that
Okay,
lists it out.
okay,
That kind of thing.
okay. And then these other plans were all referenced in the 2020 strategic plan, a streets and sidewalks plan, a downtown corridor plan, drought management plan, safe routes to
Well,
school.
the Safe
plan.
Routes to School plan is actually our CDOT grant now. That will
Okay,
coming into fruition probably in 2024. Start working on that.
okay. Is there anything that would be helpful to be looking at for that, like
I
the grant?
invented the grant.
Okay,
Actually, it's in there, but I can.
okay. How about a streets and sidewalks plan?
I don't know. Let me look through my documents.
Okay. I think some of these were aspirational at the time.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think they haven't all been
Right. Yeah.
executed, but some of them have.
Yeah, there was, I don't think we have a drought management plan. Coast restoration project. No, that was just aspirational for sure. Downtown corridor plan.
Streets and sidewalks, didn't they have like a schedule of which streets and sidewalks?
You know, we had, that came out of the SGM report that we had, so we have that big report, but all that is just saying which
Just,
streets
yeah.
need to, which are worse.
And that
which need to be repaired,
prioritized.
Right, but. Not from that, you don't have anything beyond that.
Okay. All right, I think that's all on the background materials. Then, okay, so now we just have some more questions for you.
Okay. Go for it.
So the first one is, yeah, how does the planning commission want to collaborate with us? So it sounds like we should start by coming on Wednesday.
Yes, we can actually make you an agenda item.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking we'd want to do one in May, but great if there's one in April. Maybe we want to do another.
Yeah. we
Special
probably
in
need to
May.
do it in May, but we
Yeah.
can do like a, it'll be good to do it in.
Okay. Wondering if any of the planning commission members, well, first of all, we'd love for you all, planning commission and trustees, to come to the community engagement session.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And we're thinking it'd be great to have some of the planning commission members serve as these small group facilitators for our breakouts on different topics, folks that feel comfortable doing that. We wanted to invite the trustees to participate more as participants rather than as facilitators. It just seems like there's a little bit of a power dynamic, and if it's more, this is under the wheelhouse of the planning commission, it would make sense that the planning commission be small group facilitators. So Lynn, if you're up for that, or we can ask Monica too, and
Steve might be.
Yeah, and definitely Dave will.
Dave, but he's also trustee, so.
Well,
I was just thinking it might be a better dynamic with the public if the trustees are not in like a position of power in the event. That was just my hit.
and that's
Yeah, okay.
whatever works.
So there'll be four.
Okay. And then obviously the revisions and comments on the draft master plan. Okay, this one is important. So in order to adopt the master plan, the planning commission has to have a public hearing.
Okay.
And just wondering how you wanted to do that, if you want to do it with us before our contract is up, or how, yeah, do you want to work together on the draft master plan, public review of the draft master plan, or do you want to do your own thing that doesn't require our participation?
Oh, you have to be part of the public hearing because you have to present it
Okay,
and it needs to be on the final master.
okay, so after we do after we incorporate all the comments.
That's right. The final revision is what we do public hearing.
Sometime in the new year. Yeah, it might have to be in January.
And it's in January,
Okay.
That's fine.
I think it'd be difficult to try and do it in December anyway, just with holiday stuff.
Oh, my gosh, yeah, it's hard to get anything.
Okay, cool, that sounds good. Again, which key questions or issues do you hope to have answered or addressed through the master plan? You can think about this if you want, but like the one that Barb Peterson did, it seemed like her big, I mean, that wasn't really a master plan, it was like a foundational document for a master plan, but her big question was kind of, what do we do about Paonia's economy, given that the mines are closing, and kind of like, what are our key questions of this moment that we're in? And another question we have on here is the planning horizon. We're thinking we want to look 30 years ahead, like approximately 2050, but have an action plan that covers the next 10 years, but is kind of setting us up for 2050 in a good way, thinking about dynamics of climate and migration and things like that.
And actually, my personal opinion is, 10 years is a good goal, but I think a 5-year intermediate
Okay,
goal. So 5 to 10.
Okay. okay. Sounds good.
This might be a really silly question, but since you're looking down the road potentially 50 years, would there be any use in having just one small session with youth? With the
Oh,
youth?
I love that.
I think that's a great idea.
Because they're the ones who are gonna have to deal with what we come up with. I'll be
Maybe
dead by
not to exclude the youngest of the youth, but maybe just for productivity, like kind of a high school centered, like so that we're getting some interesting feedback.
Or even if it was like some small questionnaires, like could go to Payla and, you know, some of the other alternative schools, because they have different type of feedback, and it would, maybe wouldn't have to be like everybody in a room, but maybe asking the schools, you know, we want the children's input because they're gonna end up, you know, having to adopt and deal with this.
Mhm. Yeah.
Some way to include the youth.
Maybe it's a survey, something that just because of our timeline and our contract of, you know, how much we can put into that, a way that they can. And maybe an encouragement.
If you want a pizza.
I need some people to participate around tables.
You know, I bet you if you went out to the high school and talked to the teachers at the high school, there is probably a teacher or two at the high school that would be very willing to donate their class for that purpose. Just for, you know, an hour.
Just go into one of the social studies concert or something.
Yeah, or just, okay, do the junior high school.
That's a good idea.
And that way, you know, you don't have to sort out the kids over at North Fork High between the Paonia kids and the Hotchkiss kids and the kids who live everywhere else. But just go to the KA, get the upper level junior high school kids.
Why don't we brainstorm on that and come up with a proposal and to present to you guys?
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I'm all about.
Oh,
Sorry to throw them on the rest.
No,
That's great.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I think young people tend to be more. They're really looking at the 30 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like what we keep you in Paonia.
Yeah, well, and I think it also, even if it helps to think a little bit from that perspective of like, what would a kid want in 20 years?
Yeah.
You know? Like, what does the future 10-year-old want to see?
Yeah, because we know in policy making, like the immediate short term always trumps the long term planning, right?
Yeah.
See if it seems, especially in our culture. All right, so I'm wondering if there's any specific DOLA requirements, like from the grant, about what needs to be included in the master plan.
Just what the, you know, they say that you have to have recreation.
Okay.
Two big things that they require.
Okay. Great, and then you kind of spoke to this already, Mary, but the geographic scope, are we thinking town limits versus the service area or annexable area? And I think you had even a more broad.
Right, because the annexable area is, yeah, that's basically, the IGA is talking about where we serve water, but
Okay.
I think.
Okay. And then, yeah, I spoke with Shay yesterday about coordinating and, yes, we touched on all that. My team have questions? Do you have any more questions?
I can think, you know, my key questions are very, very broad. It's like, what do we want Paonia to look like?
Physically?
Physically,
Mhm.
yes, you know. But also, culturally, what do we want this place to look like in 10 years? Do we want, you know, small manufacturing in the area immediately surrounding it? Do we want it to really become a tourist area more so?
Mhm.
Short term. I lived in Hawaii for a long time and we dealt with this issue.
Yeah.
Tourism and the economy.
Yeah,
It's not good. It's not good. It's not sustainable.
right, exactly. So how do we build a sustainable economy in our area?
One of the things I think is missing in this area that was here is the tech projects. Other skills,
Mhm.
teaching, you know, other skills.
And Region 10 has worked really hard to do that. And they've done it primarily in Montrose,
Yeah, I've seen it in Montrose.
but it hasn't.
Could the high school be used in that way? I mean,
That's where the project was.
at the high school? I thought it was the building that's for sale.
Right, that's where it was.
But I mean, the rate or the, whatever the school,
K.
Oh, that's a K, yeah.
could there be an aspect, I mean, to learn a skill? I learned how to build my own cabinets and that empowered me so.
Right.
I think there's a wing of the NIST school that's
Not being used, yeah, right, so something.
Well, there's a whole shop, functioning shop out behind the schools for sale.
The VOTEC building.
Yeah.
Because
That
we
still
have,
seems like a big question. The VOTEC
but
building.
then, you know, I've been in communities where they'll have facilities like that, and then for the kids, rather than hiring a dedicated teacher, they bring in different retired individuals that are skilled in those areas, and they teach these workshops. Pretty much for, you know, just pro bono type thing, but
I think that diversification for the future economy is kind of that key. It's like, yeah, not just one layer. It's built on.
Yeah, how can we go the younger?
and have the services. Because once, you know, the guys at the gas station retire, and that's good. It's
Oh,
like, you know, who's, you know, and we.
Oh my gosh, they
teaching,
saved my butt.
you know, and I think it's just skills, and those are valuable skills, and they have good economic.
It gets you some cultural diversity too.
that too.
Interactions, right?
I miss Hayes like every week.
Oh, my God, no kidding. It's like, oh, yeah.
I know,
Hayes is
I don't have to go to Delta.
One of my introductions to Paonia was a song that Sweet Sunny South sang. Get out just about everything you want on your farm and home. And I have these moments where I go in, I'm like, it's true. And I feel that way about Paonia, that we're such a small town, there still are actually a lot of services. And I think that's something to preserve.
Yeah, thank you. That question about economic diversification, I think is what Barb was getting at as well in her attempt at the master plan, a different issue, thinking about mining, we're thinking about over-reliance on tourism.
It's the same thing. Ever since mines have closed, that has been the big question. How can we keep this town alive without a big economic driver like mines?
In cultural diversity, I know several people who moved away from here because they missed the cultural diversity of a big city.
Yeah.
And that was their main reason. So that's pretty interesting. It's pretty challenging. If you look at the demographics of this town,
You mean-
we almost
you mean-
didn't move here because of
I
that.
mean, racial.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking the Delta County economic development work feels very heavy on tourism and agritourism. So it's just, yeah, it's good to hear that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to share. I went to the Rural Philanthropy Days and I was sitting with people, the veteran, I think it was the Veteran Foundation or no, and she was, and I forget her name. And you know, and we had lunch with her and she said, you know, there's one, I've never been to Paonia. I've driven by, I've never been in, and you have a diamond here, she said. And she said, you know, Denver did too. And you know how we ruined it? She said, I'm hearing everybody talk about wanting to get grants to bring tourists. That's there. She said, I would hate to see you do that to this town. And I think she is right. You know,
It'll still be a part of.
it's a part,
Yeah,
but
you can't have all these wineries around here and not have tourism be a part of
totally.
it.
And that's great, as long as the economic focus isn't just that.
Right.
And the top heavy.
Right. It's like having Chaco disappear. I think it's one of the big sad things that happened to this community. It's nice to see that what the Eco Bike Company is still manufacturing out of here. If we could get more small businesses like
Industrials.
yes, small little companies that make stuff that are compatible with the town and the ecological mindset of the town.
Yeah, that would be.
If there was a way, how can we attract them without giving away our tax base?
You should bring this to the community engagement session.
Yeah.
Help other people get talking about it too and generate more ideas.
And your very concrete suggestions. Based on cutting edge research.
It's like,
Yeah.
my-
What are those incentives? Who can find?
Actually has. So this is cutting edge, it drops off the cliff and the end. Like, once it got out here.
Like be here now, right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we'll get you on the agenda for Wednesday.
Okay.
Sounds like Molly can't be there. Is that right? Pretty sure.
How to put that, because it's following when we normally do like a team meeting. But it sounds like that's one that we need to be present for, so.
Well, we can put you, I mean, with everything we've done, I think we can put you either earlier or later on the agenda as you wish.
Well, as much as anything, just being present for it, you know, I think is what's, it sounds pretty important since it's on growth.
I think I can.
Okay.
Are they recorded on Zoom? Yeah.
Just that one. Where are these things?
Oh, I would give that to Sam.
Sam, she's got it, but she didn't know who to give it to.
Oh.
Because basically, here's the letter. This is basically saying
Oh.
that.
We need to adjourn.
They're right, yes. Yeah. They're doing as.
Thanks, Laura.
So this
Thank
is,
you. Good night, Laura.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Right, Apple Valley. So they have this little thing going right across our
He's
view,
in the desk game now.
which.
You didn't do the right plan.
That's the thing. I mean,
It's not, the easement is dedicated.
Is that what
for-
she did?
It's pretty much straight. It's like-
Okay, so you know.
That's the nature is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, we can't, it's not in our covenant.
Do you want to show me?
Right here.
Right here. Sure.
Anyway, here's.
That's out of here.
well,
Sam's, I think Sam.
let's stick it in the office. At least it won't get lost.
It's kind of nice
In
up
the
here.
office and then.
I'll come in. Because I know she has this letter to Steve. Actually, we've written a couple.
When I got it last, they hadn't,
But I'm not sure. I'll just.
I don't know what they actually need for that.
It's
Well, I'm on the. You could just tell. And I can basically, we just, they can't.
Well, you'll have to, but you would.
And this, you know, money, everybody uses.
Right.
That's so, that's fine.
We don't do things someday.
Like this is. So I think that. Yes. It's really not a good idea.
Most of the reading I really
Is minimal, fancy, right?
I think parts of Apple Valley and you.
You feel good about that happening.
Yeah, the bikes.
Yeah, I like it.
And I need the other three, there was a letter in our packet about doing it on the conservation easement part of it, and that's not gonna fly either.
No, we talked about that. And that's not gonna fly.
No,
I think I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
Apple Valley, just be
Let's do
something,
that,
parking and bathrooms. And people start there and they go whichever direction, this up to Apple Valley this way or up to Mandan. They keep going the way they're going. Not all.
See my money.
If you, and it's really hard to gauge some of those trails because they're really quite new. We found out because people were using. And I'm like, so do you want sidewalks?
Sidewalk plan, street sidewalk plan.
On the map, so this, that part, oh, you know, some map. And I
Yes.
said, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I did.
Like, that's once public. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
All right, well, I'm supposed to be listening to Craig